It started with a spilled latte on a sun-baked bench in Forsyth Park, and ended with a badge stripped away, a pension seized, and a man buried alive in a concrete box halfway across the country. Officer Travis Reed had believed the uniform made him untouchable. He had no idea the woman he chose to terrorize that afternoon was married to Chatham County's district attorney. What happened next wasn't slow, grinding justice. It was swift, surgical, and unforgiving. The heat in Savannah that Wednesday afternoon in June felt personal. It pressed down like wet wool, thick with humidity and the low buzz of cicadas. Natalie Cole sat on a wrought iron bench near the fountain, reviewing the final venue contract for her daughter's wedding. A half-eaten croissant and a paper cup of coffee rested beside her. She was 42, sharp in a tailored beige linen suit, but today she was just a mother trying to get the flowers right before her husband arrived. Ben Cole was 12 minutes late. As district attorney, his days belonged to the docket, but he always carved out time for the small things that mattered. Natalie checked her watch again, smiled to herself, and turned the page. "Excuse me, ma'am." The voice was flat, stripped of any southern warmth. She looked up. A patrol officer stood too close, nameplate reading Reed. Broad shoulders, buzz cut, sunglasses hiding his eyes. His hand rested near his holster like he was already deciding how this would go. "Yes, officer?" Natalie kept her voice steady. "We've had complaints about loitering and solicitation in the park. I need to see some ID." She glanced around. Tourists snapped photos. Students sprawled on blankets. Mothers pushed strollers. She was the only black woman sitting alone in this stretch of shade. "Solicitation. Officer, I'm waiting for my husband. I'm reviewing wedding contracts for my daughter." She gestured at the papers. "I didn't ask for your life story," Reed snapped. "ID, now! Or are you refusing a lawful order?" Natalie's patience thinned, but survival instincts kicked in. She reached for her purse on the ground. "Don't reach!" Reed's voice cracked like a whip. Pigeons scattered. A nearby couple froze. "Stand up, turn around! Hands against the tree!" "This is ridiculous," Natalie said, rising. "I've done nothing wrong." "You're resisting!" Reed lunged. He grabbed her left arm and wrenched it behind her back. White-hot pain shot through her shoulder. She cried out as the wedding papers flew across the grass like white confetti. The coffee cup tipped, latte spilling dark across the bench and onto the dirt. "Stop! You're hurting me!" "Stop fighting!" Reed shouted for the body camera he hadn't bothered to turn on. He drove her forward. Her heels caught in the grass. She slammed into the rough bark of the oak. Then his forearm crushed into the back of her neck, pinning her. Not cuffing, crushing. She couldn't breathe. The bark scraped her cheek raw. Reed leaned in, voice low enough for only her to hear. "You people think you own the place, dressed up like you're safe." Natalie's fingers scrabbled at his arm. Her vision tunneled. A crowd was forming. Phones rose like small digital torches. "Hey, let her go!" a college kid shouted from 20 feet away. "Back off!" Reed barked over his shoulder, pressing harder. He was enjoying it. The power, the control. He had done this in other neighborhoods and walked away clean. He figured today was no different. 12 minutes earlier, Ben Cole had parked illegally on Gaston Street, already rehearsing his apology for being late. He adjusted his tie, scanned the park for Natalie's favorite bench, and saw the crowd first. Phones raised. That strange, hushed tension he recognized from crime scenes. His stomach dropped. He started jogging. Then he heard it. A choked, desperate gasping. He shoved through tourists. "Move!" He broke into the clearing, and the world tilted. Uniform, forearm, woman pinned against the tree. Natalie, her eyes bulging, hand weakly slapping at the officer's tricep. Ben didn't shout. A cold, terrifying calm settled over him. The same place he went when he had a defendant cornered in court. Only this time the stakes were his wife's life. "Officer!" His voice boomed like a gavel. "Step away from her, now!" Reed didn't release. "Back up, sir. This is an arrest. I said let her go. Ben stepped into Reed's space but didn't touch him. He knew the law too well. Touching a cop gave them permission to escalate. Instead, he dropped to a crouch, eye level with Natalie. "Natalie, look at me, baby. I'm here." "Ben!" she choked. Ben stood to his full 6'2". He pulled his credentials from his inner pocket. Gold, heavy, unmistakable. "I am District Attorney Benjamin Cole. That woman is my wife. You are committing felony assault in front of 30 witnesses and a high-ranking officer of the court." Reed froze. The name hit like a body blow. Everyone in law enforcement knew who signed the warrants and who indicted bad cops. The pressure vanished. Natalie slumped to the grass, coughing violently, clutching her throat. Ben was beside her instantly, arm around her shoulders, checking her airway. "Are you okay?" I think so," she rasped. Reed tried to regain control. "She refused a direct order. She was reaching for a weapon." "Liar!" a woman in the crowd yelled. "She reached for her purse because you told her to. I have it on video." Ben pulled out his phone and dialed a direct line. "Chief Foster? Ben Cole, Forsyth Park. I need you here personally. Bring internal affairs and cuffs. One of your officers just strangled my wife over a wedding contract. I have witnesses. I have video. If you're not here in 5 minutes, I'm calling the FBI and filing federal civil rights charges before sunset." He hung up and looked at Reed. "You wanted to enforce the law? Good. The law just arrived. You're not going to a precinct to fill out paperwork. I'm taking this straight to a judge, right now." Reed laughed nervously. "You can't arraign me that fast. That takes weeks." Ben smiled, cold and sharp. "You'd be surprised what I can do in 11 minutes. Sirens wailed in under 5. Chief Daniel Foster stepped out of the black SUV, took one look at the red handprints already blooming on Natalie's throat, and his jaw tightened. He watched the video on a bystander's phone. The sound of Natalie gasping filled the silence. "Turn around, Reed," Foster said quietly. Reed's face drained of color. "Chief, you can't." "You disgrace the badge. Turn around, now." The cuffs clicked. A cheer rose from the growing crowd. Ben checked his watch. 11 minutes since the assault began. Load him up. I'm riding with Natalie to the hospital to document the injuries. Then we're meeting you at the courthouse. Judge Monroe has already cleared Courtroom 4. Reed was still shouting about procedure as the squad car door slammed shut. The Chatham County Courthouse usually moved at the pace of bureaucracy. Today, the air crackled. Word had spread like wildfire. Courtroom 4 filled fast. Clerks, lawyers, reporters. Judge Philip Monroe sat on the bench, lunch abandoned, face carved from granite. He had already watched the video twice. Reed sat at the defense table in his uniform, gun belt gone, looking smaller. Beside him, union lawyer Leonard Shaw sweated through his collar. He was used to defending officers after they had time to get their stories straight, not 20 minutes after the incident. "All rise. Be seated," Judge Monroe said. "We are here for an emergency probable cause hearing and immediate arraignment in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Travis Reed. Mr. Cole represents the state." Shaw jumped up. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. My client hasn't been processed. We move for a continuance." "Denied," Monroe shot back. "The state alleges a violent felony committed by a public servant in broad daylight. The evidence is secured. I see no reason to delay." Ben stood. He didn't use notes. "Your Honor, 30 minutes ago my wife was reviewing wedding plans. Officer Reed approached her without reasonable suspicion, demanded identification, and when she attempted to comply, applied a chokehold, a maneuver banned by this department 3 years ago. He compressed her windpipe for 45 seconds. He gestured to the screen. The video played. In the quiet courtroom, Natalie's gasping sounded obscene. Reed stared at the table, face burning. "As you can see," Ben continued, freezing on the frame where Reed's forearm crushed Natalie's neck, "there was no weapon. There was no resistance. There was only domination. This was not policing. This was assault under the color of law." Shaw tried. "Officer Reed perceived a threat. The subject reached into a bag that could have contained a firearm. In today's climate," Judge Monroe cut in, voice dry, The video shows him telling her to get her ID, then telling her to stop reaching after he told her to reach. Was she supposed to levitate it out of the bag? Laughter rippled through the gallery. The gavel cracked. Ben dropped the hammer. The state requests bail be denied. The room gasped. Cops always got bail. Denied, Monroe said. Shaw shrieked. He's a police officer with a commendation record. He's not a flight risk. He is a danger to the community, Ben said, voice dropping. And regarding that commendation record, I have access to files Mr. Shaw might have overlooked. He placed a red folder on the bench. Officer Reed has 6 prior excessive force complaints in the last 2 years, all against minority women, all dismissed by internal review. Today we have video. Today we see the pattern. This man is a predator with a badge. If you let him walk, you are telling this city that what happened to my wife's throat is acceptable. Judge Monroe flipped through the folder. His expression darkened with every page. Mr. Shaw, did you know about this? I was not aware of the specifics, Shaw lied. Monroe closed the folder. The court finds probable cause for aggravated assault, violation of oath of office, and given the pattern, I am adding consideration under racketeering statutes. Bail is set at $500,000 cash only. The defendant is remanded to the custody of the sheriff immediately and will be held in solitary for his own protection. Reed shot to his feet. $500,000? I don't have that kind of money. Then you should have thought about that before you put your hands on my wife, Ben said. 2 sheriff's deputies hauled Reed away. The side door slammed shut on his protests. That night, the adrenaline drained away, leaving a heavy silence in the Cole house. It was 11:45 p.m. Natalie finally slept under the sedatives the ER doctor had given her. Ben sat in his home office, staring at a file he had pulled. The man in the gray suit at the courthouse hadn't been a coincidence. Security footage confirmed it. Victor Stokes, former vice cop turned fixer for the dirty side of the police union. Ben's phone buzzed with an encrypted text from an unknown number. He doesn't make it through the night. Cell block C, 2:15 a.m. If Reed died in custody, the narrative would flip to tragic suicide of disgraced officer. The deeper corruption Ben now suspected would stay buried. He grabbed his keys and badge and drove through empty streets to the Chatham County Detention Center. He bypassed the front desk, flashed his credentials at the night captain. I need to see prisoner Reed, now. I have reason to believe there's a contract on his life inside this facility. If he dies on your watch, Captain, I will indict you for conspiracy to commit murder. Open the gate. The captain buzzed him through, pale. Reed sat on the edge of his cot in solitary, head in his hands. When he saw Ben, he backed against the wall. You here to gloat or finish me off yourself? I'm here to save your miserable life, Ben said. The cell door clanged shut behind him. Someone wants you dead because of what you know. Who is Victor Stokes? Reed's face went white. I don't know who that is. Don't lie to me, Travis. I got a tip. 2:15 a.m. That's in less than an hour. Someone is going to open this cell, and it won't be me. It'll be a lifer with a shank who's been promised an early release. Reed started to shake. They said they'd take care of it. They said if I just followed the script. Who? The payroll, Reed whispered. The precinct club. It's not just me. There's 6 of us. We target people in the parks. Tourists, locals who look like they have cash or jewelry. We confiscate it as evidence, never log it, split it. Shaw takes a cut to make complaints disappear. Stokes cleans up the messes. Ben felt sick. It wasn't just racism. It was organized robbery wearing badges. Reed had targeted Natalie because she looked professional, expensive bag, alone. Easy, Mark. I can offer you a deal, Ben said. You're going to prison for what you did to my wife. I won't budge on that. Minimum 5 years, but I can move you to a federal facility, witness protection wing, out of Stokes's reach. You live. 5 years? Reed's voice cracked. I'm a cop. You're a criminal, Ben snapped. Take the deal or I walk out that door and at 2:15 a.m. the payroll comes to cancel your check. Reed looked at the concrete floor. Imagine the shank in the dark. I'll talk, he wept. I'll tell you everything. Just get me out of here. By 8:05 the next morning, the Central Precinct briefing room was full of officers joking over coffee. Leonard Shaw stood in the back, whispering to one of the named sergeants. "Don't worry. Reed had an accident scheduled last night. We're clear." The doors burst open. FBI tactical team poured in. "FBI, nobody move! Hands on the tables!" Chaos erupted. Agents zip-tied the 6 officers Reed had named and dragged them out in front of their stunned colleagues. Ben walked in behind the agents, fresh suit, grim face. "Leonard Shaw," he announced. "You are under arrest for racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and obstruction of justice." Shaw's coffee cup hit the floor. "This is insane! You have no proof!" "I have Reed," Ben said simply. Outside, news vans were already setting up. The image of officers being marched out of their own station in handcuffs would be on every screen in America within the hour. Special Agent Rebecca Lane met Ben by the command truck. "We got the stash house. Over $2 million in cash, unauthorized weapons and drugs. Clean sweep." Ben called Natalie. "It's done. Reed talked. We got them all. The officers, the lawyer, the dirty money. It's over." Is Reed getting away with it?" "No. He's going to federal prison. He lost his job, his pension, his friends, his freedom. He's ruined, Natalie. Completely." 6 months later, the seasons had shifted. The suffocating humidity of summer had given way to the crisp bite of November. Spanish moss hung from the oaks like gray bunting. The Chatham County Courthouse stood against a pale blue sky. News vans lined up outside like white plastic flowers. The story had gone national. Inside Courtroom 1, the silence was heavy enough to crush bone. Travis Reed sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit 2 sizes too big. He had lost 40 pounds. His skin was the color of wet dough. His once aggressive buzz cut had grown into patchy tufts. Shackles chafed his wrists raw. He stared at the mahogany table, terrified to look up. If he looked left, he would see the empty jury box. He had pleaded guilty to avoid a trial that would have ended in life. If he looked right, he would see sketch artists capturing his defeat. If he looked behind him, he would see the empty bench where his family should have sat. His wife Emily had filed for emergency divorce 2 weeks after the raid. She had taken their young daughter and moved to a small town in Ohio where no one knew the name Reed. She hadn't visited. Not once. "All rise." Judge Philip Monroe entered, black robe flowing like a storm cloud. He climbed to the bench, arranged his files, and looked out over the packed gallery. Natalie Cole sat in the front row wearing the same beige linen suit she had worn that Wednesday in June. It had been dry cleaned and mended, but to her it still carried weight. Wearing it was a choice, a reclamation. Beside her sat Ben, hand over hers, knuckles white. "Be seated. We are here for sentencing in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Travis Reed. The defendant has entered guilty pleas to aggravated assault, violation of oath of office, and racketeering under the RICO statute. Does the state wish to be heard?" Special Prosecutor Margaret Ellison stood. "Your Honor, the state asks for the maximum sentence permitted under the plea. Officer Reed didn't just assault a woman. He assaulted the Constitution. He used the authority granted by the people to terrorize a citizen based on her race and his own perceived superiority. His cooperation was not born of remorse. It was born of cowardice. He deserves no leniency." "Does the defense wish to be heard?" Reed's court-appointed lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client is a broken man. He has lost his career, his reputation, his family. He has cooperated fully. We ask the court to consider these factors and impose the minimum of 10 years. Judge Monroe nodded. "Mr. Reed, you have the right to address the court. Do you wish to speak?" Reed stood, shackles clinking. He looked up and his eyes met Natalie's. He had expected hate, rage. What he saw was worse. Pity. She looked at him like something small and pathetic that had been stepped on. I just wanted to do my job," Reed stammered. "I made a mistake. I misread the situation. I didn't know who she was." A gasp rippled through the gallery. Even now he didn't understand. Natalie stood. "Your Honor, may I?" Judge Monroe looked at her with infinite patience. "The victim impact statement is your right, Mrs. Cole. Please." Natalie walked to the podium. She didn't bring notes. "Mr. Reed just said he didn't know who I was. And that is the problem. He implies that if he had known I was the district attorney's wife, he would have treated me with respect. But because he thought I was just a black woman sitting on a bench, he felt entitled to put his hands around my throat. She paused, the microphone catching the tremor in her breath. For those minutes, you took my breath, Mr. Reed. But for the last 6 months, you have taken my peace. I wake up gasping for air. I can't wear scarves because the pressure makes me panic. My daughter's wedding is next week, and instead of looking at flowers, I've been looking at therapists. You didn't just hurt me. You hurt every good police officer in this city. You hurt every person who looks like me and now wonders if the person they call for help is actually there to hurt them. You said you lost your family. You didn't lose them. You threw them away the moment you decided your ego was more important than my life. She turned back to the judge. I don't ask for vengeance. I ask for a sentence that tells the world that my life matters, that the truth matters. Judge Monroe removed his glasses. Brock, Travis Reed, I have heard the counsel. I have heard the victim. I have reviewed your file. You plead for mercy because you cooperated. You claim you are afraid. Let me tell you about fear. Fear is what Mrs. Cole felt when you cut off her air supply. Fear is what this community feels when men like you wear a badge. You committed these crimes under the color of law. You betrayed your oath. And your statement today that you didn't know who she was is the most damning thing you could have said. Justice is blind, Mr. Reed. You were merely prejudiced. He raised the gavel. On count 1, aggravated assault, 10 years. On count 2, violation of oath of office, 5 years. On count 3, racketeering, 10 years. Because of your cooperation, you are a target. For your own safety, you cannot be placed in general population. You will serve your sentence in the federal Supermax facility in Florence, Colorado, in administrative segregation. 23 hours a day in a single cell. 1 hour of solo exercise in a concrete yard. No contact with other inmates, no jobs, no communal meals. Reed's face went bloodless. This wasn't mercy. This was a living burial. You wanted to be safe, Mr. Reed. Judge Monroe said, dark irony in his voice. I am granting your wish. You will be perfectly safe and perfectly alone for 25 years. Your police pension is hereby forfeited under the Corruption Forfeiture Act. The accumulated funds, $412,000, will be seized and donated to the Savannah Legal Defense Fund for indigent victims. The final blow. He would leave prison a pauper. Get him out of my sight. The gavel slammed. 2 federal marshals hauled Reed up by the armpits. His legs gave out. He was dragged, scraping across the floor, sobbing openly. Ben, help me. I'm sorry. Ben Cole didn't blink. He watched the man disappear into the shadows. The heavy steel door slammed shut. Later that evening, the sun set over Forsyth Park, casting long golden shadows across the grass. The fountain bubbled cheerfully. Ben and Natalie walked the path and stopped at the bench. The bench. For months, Natalie had avoided this spot. It was the scene of her nightmare. Do you want to keep walking? Ben asked gently. Natalie looked at the bench, looked at the tree where Reed had pinned her. She thought about the man currently shackled in a transport van heading toward a concrete box in Colorado, where he would spend the next quarter-century staring at a wall. She thought about the pension money that would now help people who couldn't afford lawyers. She smiled, a fierce, victorious smile. No, I think I'll sit for a minute. It's a beautiful evening. She walked over and sat down, smoothing her skirt, claiming the space. Ben sat beside her, arm around her shoulders. They watched the tourists pass. They watched a young couple laughing. They watched the world keep turning. In the end, Travis Reed was just a footnote, a bad memory. But they were the story. The nightmare was over. The karma had been delivered. And as the street lights flickered on, illuminating the park in a soft, warm glow, Natalie Cole took a deep, unrestricted breath, filling her lungs with the sweet air of freedom. From a spilled latte to a solitary cell in a Supermax prison, the fall of Officer Travis Reed stands as a brutal reminder that the badge is a heavy responsibility, not a license to bully. He thought the uniform made him untouchable. He forgot that true power lies in truth and accountability. It took less than 11 minutes for Ben Cole to begin dismantling a corrupt career, but it was Natalie Cole's endurance that truly carried the day. Reed lost his family, his fortune, and his freedom, proving that when you plant seeds of hate and arrogance, you harvest a storm of ruin.